Hiya and welcome to From Stretford to Singapore. I'm your host, Anne Morgan, and I'm from Stretford in Manchester, and never in my life did I expect to be propelled halfway across the world and end up living in Singapore. It's been a tremendous experience, and I thought it would be wonderful to speak to others who've lived and worked overseas and hear their stories. How have they made it work? How have they overcome the inevitable difficulties? And what happens if they have to go back to their home country? Everybody's story is unique, and I hope you enjoy hearing them. Today is really special. I'm joined by my very good friend, Alka Chandiramani. She's a leading global business and career coach. And honestly, she is one of the most accomplished people I've ever met. If Alka puts her mind to it, she can do it. And we're thrilled as well to be joined by Anil Damardoran, who is he is a business tech expert, business travel tech expert. Yes. And we're really looking forward to hearing his story. Sure. So, Anil, tell us, where were you born and where did you go to school?
All right, so I was born in Singapore in the early 60s and went to school in Singapore, studied right up to the 12th year of school, and then I left for the US for my studies in the Pacific. Spent 3 years there, and I spent another 3 years working there also, and then I came back in 89 and I started my job career pretty much in 1989. Right up to now, I've been living here most of the time. But I had a stint in between living in Dallas, Texas for a while.
So really, very early on in your life, you left Singapore.
For a period of time in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
After the in Singapore, all men have to go through this military service, right? So I had to go 2.5 years of it, and then I decided, we'll do university overseas. And so that was an eye-opener. I mean, it comes to first time living abroad in a Western country, but it was easier because it was in the Pacific Islands. It was in Hawaii, so it was a lot easier for me.
Nice. Oh, that's hard, isn't it? Having to live in Hawaii.
Well, let me put it this way: it was a lot easier because it was the Pacific Islands, so a little bit closer in many ways with the Asian culture and the weather. Can't complain. But I think that was the first step into the world of living outside Singapore, right? Yeah, that was great, and at a very young age. Right?
Yes, so you gained some really valuable experiences and some, at that stage in your life.
Yeah, and that kind of prepared me for the future trips that I would have made, on my job, and that was helpful. Yeah.
When you came back and started work in Singapore, after your experiences. What did you? Was it what you expected, or did you have a different perspective having been away?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talk about working. You studied in school all about management, right? The Philip Kotler system and all that stuff. You studied all that, and you see it being applied in the U.S. When I worked with Hilton for a period of time. When I came back, you're coming back to a very archaic system of work environments.
Yeah.
The 5.5 day work, and when you apply for a job, it's going to be fill up this form in triplicate and submit every single form to prove that you've done your primary school and your secondary school, and it was very I think it was a bit shocking to come back to that environment.
Wow.
Yeah. And you were still very young, so it's very difficult, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was.
You've got all the energy and you want to make some change, and then you come back to a very rigid system.
Very rigid system.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess and with the company I worked with, I started with travel in '89, and then. And the good news about that was that company was linked with a American company. So then there was an opportunity there to kind of work with the Americans whom I was used to. You know what I mean? So there was some sort of it was not a local company, because if it was, then I think that re-entry would have been a little bit more devastating in a way, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So you felt there was a lot of synergy there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I could connect with people because having worked and lived there, you could connect with people, and that's probably one of the most important things about having lived abroad for a long time, and then you come back and you can kind of connect with them easily.
Yeah.
Versus being a greenhorn and you just kind of work with Americans or the British, for example, and then you speak in your own lingo, you
Yes.
speak in your own, they call it like Singlish,
Yes.
and then they're wondering what was that all about. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that gave me a very open-minded view of how I should be communicating, how I should be connecting with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So share with us a little bit more about your experience of working in the US. What was that like?
Okay, so then in 2000, I was for a while based in Texas, Dallas, Texas, and so that was a little bit of a different place, right? Obviously,
Yes.
coming from the west side of the U.S. So I always said there are four worlds in the U.S., right? In a way, the west, the Pacific, the west, the central, and the east. And people tell me, well, there's also the north. So that's a little bit of a different culture there also. But anyway, it wasn't difficult for me when I got there. Texas is a big country.
Oh,
Yes,
my
it is.
goodness.
Wow. So
yeah.
compared to Oahu, which is a small country.
Yes.
So I think that was that was a bit of a surprise. Said, whoa, you got to drive and you're gonna drive for hours. So being in Dallas, Texas, Dallas Fort Worth was a lot easier because it wasn't like out in the far away
Yes.
from the airport. So it's a lot easier and it's a lot more cosmopolitan over there. So that kind of helped a lot. So I didn't have much of a challenge when it came to, there's an Asian there. You know what I mean? There were a
Yeah.
lot of them there. So that was good, and that was helpful, a lot helpful.
So you felt you could integrate with Texans.
Well, I guess yes. So when I went to, like, say on Sundays we go to church, then you see them all.
Yes.
And then you see
Yeah.
them all, and so they were a friendly bunch of people, I think. And I never had any issues with them. They were, really accommodating. Doing shopping or walking to the mall, no issues. No issues at all.
Wow.
I was kind of taken aback in the sense that you were a little surprised that, wow, this is nice. This is friendly.
And
Yeah.
did you make friends?
Yes, absolutely. We made friends, of course, from work, for myself, and then of course at church, and we've got to know a lot of people, especially with multicultural, people from different countries also.
Yeah,
were there,
that's
so that was
great.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of friends. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great.
I think the actual looking at the way that Americans put such a big emphasis on church. Actually, the fact that and it's breaking that barrier. Actually going to those kind.
It helps.
It does help.
It does help a
Yeah,
lot.
and getting into the family ways of doing
yeah,
things and
yeah.
barbecues and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But church is huge, isn't
It's
it?
so helpful, actually.
Yes.
It's very helpful. I mean, imagine if it wasn't for that, it would have been just been work for me, and that was it.
Yeah.
For the family, it was just back to the family, and then you go out, have a meal, or you just eat at home, and then it's me back at work.
Yeah.
And that's it. You'll be a
Yeah.
lot more
That's true.
quieter.
Yeah. So how long were you in Texas?
In total, about 4 years on two occasions. So in total, 4 years, almost at the same place. When we went back for the second stint, it was back again to Dallas, Texas. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And this time, so when you came back after your second stint, how was the re-entry that time?
Well, re-entry was good. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was. I guess, for me, it was people understood why I wanted to come back, and my CEO kept extending my stay, and I've got a little baby that's growing up, and I decided, it's either there or here, right, in Singapore. So you're going to make a big decision with schooling, and so I figured that it's best that I come back here and do it here, because I think it's about, being Asian. we take pride in our own, value system and all that stuff. I don't ever say that the Americans have wrong values. They have their own, which is great. I love it. You guys, But I think for us, it was important to have my child grow up in an environment where she knew her uncles and aunties and grandma, those things were important and not to be too far away from them. So like a building, I thought that the foundation years were important for us. And so I think that's why we decided, let's move back. And maybe when she's older and when she's graduated from school, she can come back to the U.S. My daughter can come back to the U.S. and study, which I would probably want to push for that because I think the getting out of your comfort zone is important, and then seeing that, wow, it's amazing. And I think I never regretted at any point in my lifetime. I mean, in the 80s, having lived overseas and worked and studied overseas, that was the turning point because that kind of made me a lot more open, to be able to understand the culture and work with them, and it's amazing. It's just I don't know how else you can describe it. But the view, the feeling was great, experience, So coming back was in 2006 was like, wow, coming back to crowd, coming back to a claustrophobic environment.
Yeah.
So we hate crowds now. We just, when I see a line of 10 people, I said, nah, I'm not going to stand in line, So you know how it is, right? So I guess, so that was a minor adjustment, no big deal. But I think coming back home was more important. So that's why we decided to come back. And so it's been since 2006. It's been a good,
so it's a few years already.
It's been a few years, and but I keep going back for work once a year at least. So kind of helps me with the connecting part again, just not losing sight
Completely.
of
So you keep exactly. So you keep that global perspective.
You have to. Yeah.
He keeps plugging it in as well, right?
You have to. I mean, it's it just and I keep. This understanding what happens out there is so important, and you can understand now how the world works, right? In a way.
Yeah. So Anil, from your perspective, and your experience, what do you think, or if you've ever faced any sort of hidden biases, in hiring or in recruitment, anything that you can share?
Over there?
Over there, in your experience there.
Well, you know how it is in the U.S. It's very strict, right? It comes to hiring and bias and that sort of stuff. But as far as it was for me, never had any issues with biasness. I was kind of, prepared with my first stint to be, maybe I should be thinking about that, because you've heard a lot about this and that stuff. But no, surprisingly, no. It was even at work was a whole lot of people who were really warm and welcoming.
Yes.
And they perfectly understood after 4 years why I needed to go back. So it was good.
That's great.
I never had any problems with that.
Yeah.
And do you think your life would have taken a very different turn if you hadn't had that overseas experience?
Yes, I think it would have. Yeah. I think the one thing that I want to say is that when you live overseas, don't fight the system, right? I mean, just go there, work with the system, be with the system. I mean, likewise for foreigners who come to Singapore, there are things you won't like. There are things you'll like, some things you don't like.
Yeah.
Don't fight it. Go with it because you're in a foreign country. Likewise, when we were there, we had to go with the system, be with them, understand why certain things are, is done this way and done that way. Just go with it. Just don't fight it.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some of the things I would say is important. So.
And what would you say to people coming back after a stint abroad and they're having to re-entry and get back into the system that they left behind? How do they handle that? What's the best way? Do you think you just have to get back into the system you left behind?
Yeah, it goes back with where you're coming in from, usually, right? So if you're coming in from the US or from Europe, you're going to get used to, a very different system here that is very restricted, but things work here, right? So there's the other side of it.
Oh, yeah.
Things work here. It's a small country. Things work here, and so be happy with that. I guess it's a toss. At the end of the day, I always say it's a 50-50 toss, right? You got to live with expensive cars. You got to live with expensive houses. But in return, you get security, you get low taxes. So it's a toss.
Safety.
Yeah, safety. So I always say it's a toss. I tell people never go and make a decision to live overseas after a 1 week 1 week travel.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like say for example, you went to San Francisco and you spent a week there and you said, I want to live there now. You know, so that's
all
the
looks
most
good.
dangerous thing to do, right?
Hey,
Yes.
I spent a week there. I wanted to live there.
So did I, actually.
Yeah, and then comes the reality is when you decide to ship, you know, over there, you know, just pack up and go there, and then you realize, you know, I mean, 6 months of it,
Yeah,
and then you realize, oh, is this what I've I've signed myself up for, you know? But that's dangerous. So I think, like I said, like I always said, there's never one best place to live, right?
Yes.
Right.
You
So
gotta
true.
make sure
Oh,
that
yeah.
you know what's in it for you.
Yeah.
Seriously. So
Well, you always bring yourself with you, don't you?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
I'd
You-
hope so.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think it's going to change your life? Sadly,
No.
you're still in it.
yeah, you know, I think, you know, if you know, sometimes it depends on what you're looking for, right? You want a big house, big car, you know,
Yeah.
it's a compromise. It's what's in it for us. I guess for Singaporeans, I guess the decision is not a very difficult one. You know, I mean, you know, like I said, there's no push and pull kind of factor. For some people, maybe it's schooling, especially for parents when they bring up kids in Singapore. They say it's so stressful here, and so I want to pack up and go to Australia. I want to pack up and go to the US.
Yes.
You know, because it's a lot easier. But I think if you look deep down, having lived overseas, now I see it's important that my child goes to school here, the difficult system, because I think they do have a pretty robust system here that kind of, you know, makes you, that kind of future-proofs you in many ways, academically, unfortunately, but it kind of teaches you a lot about international affairs, international business, you know, working overseas. I mean, when it comes to politics, you know, you're much more exposed here with that academic ground. Because when I went there, I said, you get people still in the US thinking that Singapore is in China.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I've had that many
Yeah.
times.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's changed suddenly after the crazy rich Asians.
That and maybe
Now
the,
suddenly, like, Singapore is on the planet, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow,
you know, you'll
Singapore,
be surprised. It's only kind of recent. I think maybe in the last 3 years even. One of my daughter's friend had to relocate, and she's local, and but she had to relocate of all places to Iowa. Okay,
Oh,
way out there.
we
right?
have a good friend from Iowa.
Yes, Jen Wood.
Yes, yes. Of course, she's a
Yes.
friend of all of us.
I tease her so
Oh, you
much.
must,
So
yeah.
I tease her so much. I say, my daughter has a friend. Do you know? You think you know her? You think you know them?
Yeah.
I thought it was a small community.
I was texting her this morning.
Were
I'm
you?
meeting Anil this afternoon. Yeah.
Is she still in Denver?
She's still in Denver. Yeah.
Okay, so
Freezing.
and so what's funny is that when she started school there,
Yes.
the kids were asking her, "Is Singapore in China?" And that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
"That's so recent." I think, and that's one thing when I used to live there in the U.S. When you turn on the news, it's usually 10 minutes of weather and 10 minutes of issues
Whatever.
Yeah,
and
very
concern.
local
Yes,
issues, very
very
parochial.
local.
very,
Very
local. So
local.
you're
Yeah.
not really exposed to
International scene.
international stories and stuff. So, so I think it comes with the system. There's just so many things happening in the mainland that you just have to be busy. Listening to that, right? Politics again. So I think so I decided to make that move, like I say, back to Singapore, get this education done here, and then and I think the tertiary education is better there, or in Europe or in the US is better. So I think that part is something that I'll have to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you came back, did you have was there anything like an energy about you that you thought I used to do it that way, but now I've been abroad, I'm going to do it a different way, that you could bring
Yes.
either into your life or into your business?
I think in many ways, I mean, when you have the local Singaporeans who have not lived or worked overseas, that's when you really can mentor them when it comes to
Yes.
dealing with the international audience. That's very important. It's
Absolutely, I
about
think
speaking,
so.
speaking skills and and I coach people in presentations and business presentations, and so I think that's where the lack of confidence comes from our locals here, and so that's where I think I can help improve that with people. I mean, it comes with practice, but it's about bring that back here. I think that's very important when it comes to the gift of the gab.
Yes.
We don't really have that in our part of the world.
Yeah.
That's something that I think it's important for us to build. And interestingly, the school system is starting to do that now in Singapore, which is good. And then it also comes back with, how a Westerner may have a conversation and they may come up with terms that obviously the local chap may not understand what that term is. So that's why people like Jen and I can just communicate like crazy. We understand. We crack jokes and
Yes,
even
'cause,
with
yeah.
so we can do that easily. But when she does that with a local chap, you kind of you see stars. And you're just wondering what did she just say. But what the heck? I'll just laugh.
Because
Yeah,
it's a blank look.
Yeah,
right?
it's a blank
Yeah.
look. Sometimes. But short of being rude, they'll just laugh and go with it.
Yeah, which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
in the end, humour is a
Humor
great
is-
leveler,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
Absolutely.
you know.
Interculturally, anyway, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I think that exposure is, I never regretted it. It's so important, and coming back home that's home for us. It's home here, and like for you, it's Hong Kong, but you're making this home, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been here for 16 years already.
16, that's
It's
pretty
just,
much
It's
home.
gone by so quickly. But yeah, I mean, Singapore is actually really Asia 101, right? I'd say. I mean, even coming from Hong Kong,
Yeah.
it was tough initially the first few months.
Yeah.
But, after a while, people are really great. I mean, very friendly and it's easy to navigate.
I mean, and as somebody who left it very late to move,
Yeah.
as I said in the introduction, I really never expected to leave the UK. I never expected to get the opportunity.
Right.
It's not that I didn't want to go. I just didn't think I'd get the opportunity.
Right.
And then getting the opportunity later was just, an incredible gift, to be honest. And what I found when I arrived in Singapore, of course, it is a global hub.
Yeah.
So that, and it's very connected, and there are many opportunities for people of different cultures to get together. Now, that sometimes is not necessarily local Singaporeans.
Right.
It's either Singaporeans who've been abroad or people, for myself, I ended up meeting a lot of Americans.
Right.
So I went to Singapore to meet Americans, which is really odd.
Should have
Yes,
gone
I
to
would
the
think
US,
so.
right?
Yes.
But
Wait a
I mean,
minute.
I didn't do that deliberately. That's just, that they were the biggest demographic that I met in Singapore. It's
Okay.
just,
Wow.
and there's many reasons for that. But but there are obviously a lot of different cultures here and a lot of different.
It's a melting
It's a
pot, you know.
complete
Yeah,
melting
yeah.
pot, and. And it is interesting how everybody tries to connect with each other, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't
Yeah,
work. And
yeah.
and I know that that there are times when the sort of, for want of a better word, expat side of things doesn't rub up too smoothly against the local side
Yeah.
of things, and
I think which is why I'm saying that if you talk about living here, go with the system, go with the with the system where I say that it's going to be challenging for an American or a British to kind of come here and say, why is this law like this, or why can we not buy chewing gum?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little
Yeah.
iffy stuff but you know what? I lived overseas for many years, and I said that, hey, you know what? I might be living there, but I came back.
Yes.
Because for the simple reason that having lived overseas, you realize that things kind of work here, and I'm comfortable. I know why it's so strict here, because we're a tiny little country, and any little spark will cause a problem.
True.
Whereas if you talk about bigger countries, a little spark will just dissipate after a while, right?
Yes.
But we can't afford it here, and that's why we have very strict rules and laws here, which is great. I don't have an issue with it, but the message to everyone coming here is don't have an issue with that, because that's how the system should work.
Yeah.
And likewise, if I was living overseas, I have to go with it.
I think that's brilliant advice,
Yeah.
because I think too many people. I'll take an example. I mean, it's things like, oh my goodness, the cost of a car, and it's like, well, you can't compare it with your home.
Yeah.
You have to. immediately accept that's what it costs, that's what you're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
Or do as I do and get on the bus or
the
the
train.
MRT or
Yes.
take a taxi,
Yeah.
because the public transport system is amazing.
Mm.
But there's no point in harking on about, oh my goodness, this is so
No.
expensive, that's so
No.
expensive, because
Yeah.
it is that way, and
And
you either accept it
Right.
or you don't accept it, and then you don't live there.
Right. And and Alka, you know this
Yes.
also. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not an expensive country. If you all right, now if you want
Choose to live.
how you and how you choose, and if you think that going to a restaurant every other day is important to you, then yes, it will be expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of stories to talk about this, because at the end of the day, it's about how you spend your money here. You can be rich in many ways because our tax structure is very low, right?
That's right.
Likewise in Hong Kong. But like I said, it's how you want to live your life here. You can have fun. And the good thing is that now I'm seeing a lot of expats living in
HDBs,
HDB
the Housing
estates.
Development Board.
Oh, I
Wow.
think that even in the time I've been here, the environment has completely
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
And there is definitely more integration. and an equalisation in benefits.
It's fascinating to
definitely.
see expats eating at hawker centers,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
aspiring and that stuff. I said, yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's
you know
the
what I
way
mean?
to do it.
Yeah, that's the
way
way.
to do
And then they realize that, hey, it's not a bad country. It's not bad a country, when it comes to cost of living.
I think there's a lot of people that absolutely love the country, and
Thank
and
you.
the ones that love it are the ones that get involved with things like that, with the cultural side of
Yes.
things
Yes.
and the local side of
Yeah.
things. They don't try and take everything about their
No.
life and rebuild it.
Yeah.
That's not and that's any person living in any country. You cannot take your country with you. The more you're going to be more
No.
successful
Ex-
if you work with
Absolutely.
what you find when you
Absolutely.
get there.
Yeah.
You look at our good friend Jen. I mean, she was, first time out of the country, I think, in the US of A.
Yes.
And coming to Singapore, hot, sweaty country, but she just got into the system really
Yes.
well. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have meals at the hawker center, and she's cool. Like I said, and that's where you really enjoy it, and that's where you really think, hey, it's an affordable country, very actually.
And I think that's a lovely way to end our conversation, and quite a surprising thing for some people to think that
Yeah.
Singapore is actually surprisingly affordable.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
But thank you, Anil, for
You're welcome.
for a wonderful conversation and some great advice. And Alka, lovely to see you, and thank you.
Always. Thank
We
you.
didn't even interview her. Come on.
Oh, no, the interview was with you.
Oh, it was me.
Oh, well,
gosh.
don't worry,
Okay,
we'll-
you guys teamed up on this.
Yes. You're on the hot seat.
Yeah.
All right, it was fun. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
well. Thank you.